morning, Joe.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
How was your Christmas?
Christmas was wonderful. It was nice. I was saying to people, it was nice how it fell on the weekend. People had the Monday off, half day Friday preparation. So, but we were together as a family, and everybody was healthy, and it was a great time.
And it'll be the same for the upcoming New Year holiday.
That's right. We'll take it.
Interesting. No delay this week for trash collection, but 1 day delay next week. Is that right?
You got me, Joe.
Okay.
I know there's no delay this week. I'm not sure why there would be delayed next week if they're kind of the same idea, but
conflicting messages on the city website, so I wasn't sure either.
All right, we'll have to look into that.
We will look into that and certainly let people know.
Okay.
Speaking of the new year, do you do resolutions, Mayor? Is that something that you're
I really haven't thought about it, honestly. I know some years I have, but I still have some time, I suppose. Come up with something.
Is it?
How about you?
Just stay healthy.
Yeah.
I think that's the big one for sure.
Sure.
Is it too early to ask you if you plan to run for re-election next year?
It is too early, Joe.
Okay.
But thanks for asking.
I will continue to ask.
I know you will. That's fine.
Part of my job. But in the meantime, can we talk a little bit about something that will be happening in the new year, and that is the sale of cemetery plots at Pine Hill Cemetery.
Yeah, actually, the expansion project is going very well. C. Norton is the contractor on it. And as you know, we were running almost out of cemetery space. And that was the need for the expansion project. When I say expansion, by the way, it's already land that we had as part of the cemetery. But when you build out a cemetery, you kind of do a section at a time. You bring more money in through pre-sales, and then you build out another section. You never build the whole thing out at once. Actually, if cities did that in the 1960s, would have a lot more space because there was no issue of the state habitat issues back then.
Right.
But having to deal with some of those environmental issues now, there's a number of acres we cannot use going forward. But the project that we're undergoing now is going to create thousands of new graves. It's going to help meet the need of our residents for a long time. So those folks that do their pre-planning for many years with local undertakers, they could not secure a grave as part of their pre-planning because we didn't have the numbers. Now we do. So I certainly encourage people, those that are involved in pre-planning, to schedule a time with our cemetery department and work that out so that you don't have to have your kids worry about that when the time comes.
Right. I know it'll start next week. It'll be available through the city website or in person too at the office at Mount Wollaston Cemetery.
Yes, which is the main office. Correct. Yeah.
And if you could talk a little bit more about the project, Mayor, and not only more additional plots, but also a kind of a complete overhaul of the cemetery itself.
Yeah, I often said that Pine Hill was the poor stepchild to Mount Wollaston. Mount Wollaston is such a magnificent cemetery. It goes back to 1855 with some incredibly impressive monuments. We've done the roads over in there. The tree canopy in there is pretty healthy. And then, of course, you get to Pine Hill, and the way it sits with the sun orientation, the place really, really big, so it's been tough for the grass to hold up. We definitely need more trees in there. The roads need to be done over, which they're going to be. There'll be a new office for the public, for the employees to deal with the public up there. There's going to be some new walls and a waterfall and some beautiful features to really embellish the cemetery. Cemeteries are certainly a place for burial and for people to visit their loved ones. But it's also, in this day and age, that they're a park. There are people that just like to go in and walk and or ride their bike through and just get a little time away from the hustle and bustle of the urban environment. So it serves a couple of purposes. So this will really upgrade the entire cemetery when we're finished with the project.
Yeah, it begins, well, I guess completes in about a year from now. Is that right?
That's about right. Yep.
Very good. And this is just for residents. Is that right, Mayor?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Can we talk a little bit about something else that will be happening in the new year, and that is sit down with the Quincy Teachers Union?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the negotiating team with the superintendent and his team and members of the school committee have had several meetings, I believe up to 12 at this point. Might be off by one or two, but 10 to 12. And they have another meeting scheduled for January 3rd. Both both teams will be at the table, and hopefully we'll get there. I mean, it's there's some tall issues there put on the table, and I hope we can find some common ground.
Are you close, would you say?
I'd say we're closer.
Okay.
Definitely closer than where we were.
Are there other unions still outstanding that need contracts, or is this the last one?
There might be a couple little ones, Joe.
Okay.
On the city side, I think there's a couple of small ones, but the big ones, the 1139, Public Works, the police, the fire, and they've all been settled. And those actually go back to July. Those contracts. The teaching one goes back to September, so it's not unusual to go 3, 4, 6 months after the contract in negotiating. So it's not like it's a year or two out, everything goes retroactive to that time. So at least on the city side, that's happened. I know that's the proposal would be on the school side as well. That whatever the raises would be, it would go back to September.
Very good. Speaking of the schools, did you want to comment at all on the graffiti incident that occurred at the high school?
Yeah, these incidents are unfortunate. We have a great school there. Both high schools are great schools with good leaders, good principals, a lot of great staff, and all it takes is a couple of, nitwits or ignoramuses, whatever the term you want to use. There's people out there that look to start trouble. There's people out there that are ignorant. There's people out there that may have some mental health issues. What I would suggest to people is, much like any other incident, that we withhold a little judgment until the investigation's completed and we understand exactly, when we can find out who the perpetrator was and the motivation for it. It's not always as clear up front as people think. So I know I've been criticized for not speaking out more quickly sometimes on these issues, but sometimes they don't play out exactly how people think at the initial start of it. So everybody's due, their due process in this, and much like the incident we had around the T station, So anyway, I have great faith in leadership of Principal Ford up at Quincy High School and his team, staff. It's unfortunate we have young people who like to start trouble, like to create some havoc, and it's not going to be stood for, rather. And there's a lot of cameras in these buildings, and there's a lot of people talking. So I think we're going to find out who exactly did this.
Has Principal Ford reached out to you to express his feelings about that?
We've talked as a superintendent's leadership team, superintendent and the team. Superintendent is on top of these things all the time, and Principal Ford is a strong guy. He's and you look at him, he looks like a strong guy, but I mean his personality. He's been a great asset at Quincy High, and I think people really love the principal there. And he understands dealing with young people. They come in all types and sorts, and as I've said many times, there's evil, there's ignorance, and the mental illness in the world, and it's one of those three. And hopefully we're going to figure this out on who it was, and this won't happen again.
I know last time we talked, Mayor, you'd mentioned you were trying to figure out new ways to advertise for the position of the DEI liaison. Have you talked more about that with your team?
Well, we're looking at a bunch of things. The City Council not long ago put a resolve in having us looking at pay scales and to see if we're competitive in areas. And I suggest we're fairly competitive in many areas, but there are other areas that we're not. And we're looking at this in going forward the next several months. So it could be that the position doesn't pay well enough in this marketplace. That could be one of the reasons, but that was the range the committee recommended. So we'll revisit that with the committee. But I'll tell you, I said from the beginning, I respect the wishes of the committee and the council. But the city continues to move forward. The city continues to do the right thing. We're a diverse city, and the city is a safe city. We've had some issues, as we just talked about, but overall, for 102,000 people next to the city of Boston, I think we're the safest city, at least in the top 10, if not beyond, population-wise, in Massachusetts. So we have a lot to be proud of. And school system does great work. Our libraries do great work, and we'll continue to do that. So if hopefully we'll succeed. We'll see. We're going to repackage this. It may require additional dollars towards the salary of it. We're looking at that now.
Mm-hmm.
There's just in general, as we know, people are having trouble filling jobs. Period, Joe.
Yes.
Whether it's the private sector, I think you're going forward. Who's going to drive a plow truck in 5 years? We used to have people lined up want to work for the city. That's not the case anymore. So we got some challenges going forward. This is only the tip of the iceberg going forward, honestly. So.
Very good. Well, we'll continue to talk about them with you here, if that's all right, in the new year.
Sounds good.
A very happy, healthy one to you, your family, and your colleagues, Mayor. Appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Joe. I certainly wish your listeners out there, your viewers out there, a new year filled with good health and abundant blessings.
Amen. Thanks, Mayor.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.